Hello and welcome back to Mega Miniatures. Today we're going to be painting up the Primaris Lieutenant who came with the Imperium Magazine. Plus I'm going to be announcing who wins this copy of the Imperium Magazine. Using this random number generator that's on Google, I only have 5 comments so it's going to be quite simple. We come at number 3. That is Matt. Thank you so much for your comment. I'll message you now and ask you for your address and get this magazine sent off to you straight away. Right, let's get on with the painting then. Okay, we're back, and as I said in my last video, I was going to build up this Space Marine Lieutenant. So let's start clipping. Obviously we don't need our Necron friend over here, so we can take him straight off and just put him to the side, keep him safely for another project. So the trick here, I would advise using good quality clippers. Now as a real aside here, when you get a starter set, often you'll be given these starter ones. They're just not very good. They will frustrate you. The actual Citadel ones are absolutely worth it. Very good, very sharp, got a nice weight to them and do a very good job. So really it's worth the investment to upgrade. So that's the first call. But anyway, and when you're chopping this guy out, just be careful not to cut too close to any of the parts. We can clean it up a little bit later. And we have some sprue left over. Now don't throw this away. There's other things you can do with sprue, and I will save that for another video, but keep it. People will tell you to use back of a scalpel. It's just not worth your fingers. You can't see it overly well, but there's a huge cut from here to here on my finger that I've done with a scalpel before, and it's not worth it. You'll spend time your day going to A&E, you'll spend your day getting it stitched if you're not lucky, and I was very lucky I managed to get away with butterfly strips, but it's still painful, and it still puts you out of action for a while because you can't really have access to all your fingers, and any movement stretches it, and that's not good. What we're going to move on to now is gluing it together. So there's a few options you have. There's plastic glue that comes from Citadel. This is very popular. Simple, not too complicated. You have a glue, a metal top here, which you then glue your pieces down with. A glue I'm going to be using today is called Tamiya Extra Thin Cement. Now this one's a little bit different. You don't glue the pieces together, as in a piece there and then attach it. You will attach the pieces and then use this to melt the plastic together. So when gluing your model together, just be mindful not to get any of the glue onto your actual fingers. One thing I'm doing for this guy, which is a little bit different, is I have this box. It's a bit bright, and it says Blood Angel shoulder pads, and what this is a pack of Flesh Terror shoulder pads. So we're going to use one of these and replace this left shoulder with that. Taking this shoulder pad apart, it's either made from a resin or a fine cast, so it probably needs a bit of a wash just to make sure it's safe and good to use and will actually hold the paint. What I'm doing is cutting away at the shoulder, slicing it back rather than kind of taking the whole shoulder off and adding in the Flesh Terror's shoulder piece that I've got. I cleaned it up with a little bit of green stuff, used some liquid green stuff too, which I'll be covering in a future video to really show you how I use that, and it just helps keep the model nice and clean and all as one piece, so it doesn't really show off where I've made that change. There's a huge variety of people either just entering the hobby who have been in it for a long time, maybe just coming back, or are just intrigued by what's kind of possible with this new magazine. The magazine will give you tips and helping painted guides on how to make them as ultramarines, but that's not everyone's cup of tea, and not everyone's the biggest ultramarine fan. I think they're a very good army. Don't get me wrong, when I started in Warhammer, they were my choice as well. It made sense. I was interested in them, and I think my other option I really liked was the Black Templars. I changed some of my guys later on into Black Templars. So what I'm doing is covering the model now in a corn red base, giving that a lot to the armour, making sure it's covering the legs and the torso and the arms. The black, as you'll see in a bit, I'm reserving for the head and the shoulder pads, apart from the left shoulder pad, which has been converted for flesh tearers. That's going around the white blade shape to make sure it stays safe and keeping it all nice and clean there. I have to admit, some of this footage isn't exactly how I wanted it to be filmed, but being my first painting video, I hope you'll forgive me. I found some new techniques through this process that I'm going to be bringing to my future content. Just touching up the arms there and ensuring that I'm covering around the head. Now you can be a little bit messy here because it's your chance to make mistakes and also make adjustments, but the neater you can be, obviously the easier it's going to be on you later on. I'm not following strict flesh tearer rules on how the model should exactly look with the paint job, kind of giving it my own feel and how I really want this piece to look. So unlike the ultramarine option shown in the Imperium magazine, I chose to paint this model with a flesh tearers theme. So there are a few adjustments I've made, and the colours are slightly different to what might be recommended. As you can see, I'm painting the sword sheath and the shield both in the same corn red. It kind of stood out to me as a colour that would just suit the entire model, and knowing that I'm going to darken it up later with Nuln oil, to me it's just a colour I want to focus on. This is going to be a very dark model and different to my other armies, which are much lighter. My Death Guard, for example, is following the pallid hand paint scheme, which, as some of you may know, is of more whiter features with a darker green and more rust. My Adeptus Custodes, I focused on a Solar Watch colour scheme, which has a very bright white look to it. So this is my chance to really go dark and focus on those parts. The red on this seemed to take me the longest time. I really wanted to get it right and just ensure I was doing it properly. I was doing about 3 thin base layers using my Red Grass wet palette to ensure that the paint wasn't too thick. But I think the pigment on this colour is really strong, so I could probably have got away with a few less layers, but I just wanted to make sure it was right. Especially as it was the first video on this channel that really focused on painting. Okay, moving on to the black now. I was using the base paint Abaddon black. This will be over the black army painter spray, so it really brings itself to the forefront. You can see I'm even using it to cover up some of the red areas that now have changed my mind on what they're going to look like. I had a visual in my head as I was going along, but things change and it does adjust, so I was excited to see that process and how I developed it. My lighting's changed a fair few times for this filming. I'm trying out a few different lights and seeing what works the best and how it's going to stay. I think I've found a solution now that I'll be bringing for the next video involving the Necron Royal Warden. Moving on to the leather of his gun holster and pouches in the back, I chose to go for a layer paint of Scrag Brown. It's a lot lighter than other colours there, and I believe many other people might have chosen something a little bit darker, but knowing again that this was going to be hit by non-oil, it was going to pop a little bit, but I think that gives it a slight difference and a real eye-catching piece to the model. I used a base colour of Mephiston Red on the awards on the body. Again, just giving them a chance to pop and really stand out. This was also then used for a few of the highlights around the model. There's also a base layer of Lead Belcher to add for the metallics. And with those simple paints, really not a lot, there we have it, the full model. I hope you liked it, and I'll be giving more details in future of how I'm painting this. As I said, this is my first foray and experiment into this world and into doing this. I'm excited to see what else I can create. I'm really proud of how this turned out, and I like it being the start piece for the entire scheme and how this army could eventually look. So tell me what you think below, and I look forward to coming back with the next video where I'll be painting the Necron Royal Warden. Thank you. Bye.